Everyone stay put. Hold them down! I need to reload!
S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. This game came out about a week ago now at this point. I reviewed it on the day that it launched. It was a first impressions review, and my thoughts were mostly positive. In fact, I put Game of the Year contender in the title of that video, and that was after I only played it for a handful of hours. But now I've spent a lot more time in the world of S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. I still haven't finished it though. I'm taking my time with this game, but I feel like I've been living in the Chernobyl zone for days on end at this point, eating an ungodly amount of canned food and moldy hunks of bread, stabbing myself with medkit injectors over and over and over. I've experienced a lot more of the story, and I feel like now I have an even firmer grasp on how I feel about S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. In fact, I stand by that Game of the Year contender statement even more now. Yes, this game has its fair share of problems, but despite those problems, I'd be a cold-blooded liar if I said that this wasn't still one of the funnest, most immersive games that I've played all year. So in this video, I just want to hyper focus on some of the core reasons why I'm having so much fun with S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, why I think this game is far greater than the sum of its parts, and why I think the pros outweigh the cons by a significant margin. But with that being said, the more that I play S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, the more I start to notice a lot of its shortcomings, and the more criticisms that I have with the game. So I will talk about those at the end as well. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call this video a review. This is just going to be me rambling about why I love S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 with a healthy dose of criticism at the end. But if you're interested in me talking about the game in a more broad sense, check out my initial review if you haven't already. But anyway, let's talk about S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, but before we do that, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, I talk about video games all the time on this page. Day one reviews, other video game discussions like this.
I hear ya.
Good. So what do you say?
You're on your own here.
Sit yourself. Just stay out of the way. All right. We're coming in. We have to gang up on him. Let's go!
The main thing about S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 that has me hooked and has me coming back hour after hour is just the sense of realism that this game has. And I know that might sound outlandish or borderline insane to some of you hardcore first-person shooter players out there, especially those of you that game on a PC. I know there are so many games on Steam or whatever that are designed to be the most hardcore, realistic first-person shooters ever. Like if you get shot in the game, you get shot in real life. But I game on a console. I don't have a gaming PC, so I never get to experience those games. My knowledge of first-person shooters begins and ends pretty much where you'd expect. Call of Duty, Battlefield, Far Cry, that sort of stuff. Console stuff. So compared to those games, in that specific context, S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is some serious hardcore shit, and I really love it. I love the gunplay and how there's not many HUD elements to help you out. Like in most games, when you're shooting at an enemy and you see the little X pop up each time your bullets make contact, usually a white X and then a red X if the bullet actually kills them, but that doesn't happen in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, and I find it really adds to the sense of immersion when you find yourself engaged in firefights, especially when it's dark out and you're outnumbered and you're just firing shots in the general direction of where you see the muzzle flashes, and you have no idea if you're actually hitting them or not, or if they're dead and it's safe to come out. I know it's a simple feature, and I'm sure a lot of first-person shooters have the option to turn that off for a more immersive experience, but I've never done it. I've never considered doing it before, but now that I know how much more tense it makes the core combat, I can't imagine I'll ever not turn that off in the future if given the option. But also the fact that your guns can jam on you really adds a lot to the experience as well, in my opinion. There's been a good handful of times that I've been hunkered down, waiting for the perfect shot, and right when I'm about to take it, my gun jams and I lose the opportunity. Another simple aspect that I feel goes a long way in terms of just adding to the overall sense of tension and, again, realism. I apologize if I'm spamming that word at this point, but also movement feels pretty limited, especially when compared to a lot of other modern games, and I feel that could be jarring for a lot of people, especially people in the same boat as myself who primarily play FPSs designed for consoles. But the movement in this game isn't like COD. You can't vault over every single thing you see in 0.25 seconds. You can't sprint into a slide and slide into a takedown. Again, movement in this game feels kinda clunky and slow. And again, for a lot of people, I feel like that's gonna be a negative, but I actually really like it in this context. I'm not saying I want every FPS to have movement like this, not at all. But for this game and the tone and vibe that it's going for, I think it really adds to it. I actually think S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 would lose a lot of its charm if the movement and the gunplay felt more smooth like Call of Duty. I'm gonna compare it to a lot of survival horror games, actually, my favorite genre of video games. I think for most survival horror games, the more clunky it feels, the better. And I don't mean like jank clunkiness, but clunky in the sense that movement and interactions and combat feels more limited. In a survival horror game, you want to feel like you're at a disadvantage just for existing. You don't want to feel like you can spin and twirl or Michael Jackson moonwalk your way out of life-threatening situations. It breaks the immersion, at least for me. When it feels like the character you're playing as can handle any situation they're in, you lose a lot of tension. And that's how I feel about S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. Gunplay doesn't give you any tips or hints to let you know how good you're doing. Your guns often work against you, despite the fact they're your only defense, and the simplified movement forces you to feel like you always have to pay attention to your placement, and you have to make almost every step count.
It's over, guys. Good job.
But anyway, the second main reason why I'm loving S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 so much is the exploration. I just love being in this world, but more importantly, I love opening up my map, seeing a point of interest, and just going there. It doesn't happen often these days that I actually like doing that. So many open world games or games with open areas these days are just so goddamn boring to explore. They're either filled with pointless shit that you don't care to collect, or side quests that are just incredibly dull or uninteresting due to piss poor writing. I swear for every 10 open world games I play, only one of them feels like there's some sense of care and passion was crafted into the experience. But don't get me wrong, so far S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 doesn't feel like The Witcher 3 or Elden Ring in terms of exploration payoff to square foot ratio, but it's still far better than, again, probably any other open world game I've played this whole year. The world feels alive, which I really like. It feels like there's shit happening around me other than just what I'm doing at any given moment. It's not the most lived in or thriving world in a video game, but again, when compared to most other open world games I've played lately, it feels alive as hell. For example, I know I gave this comparison in my last video, but I'm going to do it again. When I was playing Star Wars Outlaws and I was out in the world exploring, never once did I think I would happen upon a cool random thing that wasn't pre-planned or repetitive or scripted. Same with Dragon Age The Veilguard. And those are two games I like more than most people, by the way. But in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, there's been a good handful of moments now that I was just out and about, walking around, doing nothing in particular, and I'd hear gunshots and see some NPC soldiers fighting dogs or a poltergeist. And there's been several times that I've wandered into the most random cave or building complex and found a dude or a group of dudes there, and it just really made me feel like I was a small piece of a living world, and the game wasn't just me and only me. And this kind of ties into the third main reason of why I love S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, and that's that stuff just feels worth doing. Main quests, side quests, random exploration. It always feels like it pays off in some way, shape, or form. Again, I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record here, but almost everything in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 feels handcrafted, with the goal of making the player feel as immersed as humanly possible. And most of it pays off, and it's what keeps me coming back for more day after day, hour after hour. The more and more that I play S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, and all of those aspects combined reminds me so much of a long time ago when I played Fallout 3. If you can really say that I played Fallout 3, I played this game when I was a little kid, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't really know how to play an RPG at the time. When I first played this game a long time ago, I thought it was essentially like playing Call of Duty or like playing Far Cry or something like that. I didn't know about dialogue options. I didn't know about RPG stats. I didn't know about radiation. I didn't know that when you killed an NPC that it was permanent. I didn't know that you could seriously mess up your game. I didn't know that you could literally go in any direction and do anything in any order that you wanted. And I'm not saying that's the case with S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, by the way. I know how to play this game. I know what to do. I don't even really remember my playthrough of Fallout 3. It was so long ago. But like, you know how like when you're just minding your own business, walking around, and then you catch a whiff of something and that brings back a memory that you didn't even realize you had in the back recesses of your brain? That's basically what S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is doing for me when it comes to how it reminds me of Fallout 3. I have no idea why I'm rambling about Fallout 3 now. Let's get back to the video. But like I said earlier, the more that I play S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, the more criticisms I find myself having with the game as well. For example, the enemy AI is pretty inconsistent. Sometimes I'll get into a gunfight with 3 or 4 dudes, and I'll feel like one is trying to flank me, while one lays suppressive fire, and the other is hucking grenades in my direction. But more often than not, they seem to be malfunctioning in some way. A lot of the time, if you're in the same room with an enemy and then you leave the room, they'll just go brain dead and they'll have no idea how to find you. And some friendly NPCs are wonky as well. Oftentimes they'll face in the complete opposite direction when they're speaking to you, or sometimes some way, I don't even know how, it'll seem like their voice completely changes in the middle of their dialogue. It's really strange.
Are you looking for your friend, Loner? He was wounded. Badly. He didn't stand a chance without my help.
I go into an emission every once in a while no one's looking. Not for long, of course. There's just something familiar about it. I feel home. Feel welcome.
Never lose sight of yourself.
It's just clear that this game needs to roll out some hefty patches for the way enemy AI and NPCs in general act. Don't get me wrong though, it's not a shit show. It doesn't completely break immersion or the game, at least for me, but it can clearly be a lot better. Also, earlier I said the world feels alive, which is true, especially again compared to a lot of other recent open world games, at least in my experience, but it seems like the way the game world operates and works around you needs some tweaking to unleash its full potential. Some Sometimes enemy spawns are weird and unrealistic. There's been a couple times now I watched the same enemy spawn over and over and over again after I kept sniping them from a rooftop. But anyway, generally speaking, these are the biggest flaws that S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 has, in my opinion, but luckily, all of this can be fixed theoretically. Nothing I mentioned is a core gameplay feature that's fundamental to the game's existence. All that, I assume, is stuff that can be easily fixed with some patches. And the game will go from amazing to legendary, at least for me. But with that being said, I do have some critiques with the game that can't be so easily fixed, like the monsters in this game. I like fighting the humans a lot more than the monsters. All the ones I've encountered so far have just been kinda annoying, if I'm being honest. The dogs were cool at first, and they posed a real challenge, but you come across them so often that it just becomes annoying. Same with the bloodsuckers. I thought they were badass at first and really fun to fight, but now, whenever one pops up, I just roll my eyes as I prepare myself to waste half of my health and half of my shotgun shells. Also, I said this in my initial review, and it's unfortunately still the case, even though I've put in a lot more hours now. But as of right now, I'm not the biggest fan of the main narrative. It still hasn't hooked me. It doesn't have me invested at all, but even though I don't care about the main narrative, I've still found plenty of stories to care about, whether it's through side quests, which I still find to be a lot more rewarding of plot lines, or just random exploration in the stories I create myself. But yeah, those are the core reasons of why I'm loving S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 so much, and why it's definitely a Game of the Year contender for me, and why it's one of the best gaming experiences that I've had all year, if not the past few years, especially when it comes to newly released video games. And depending on how my thoughts change or evolve as I play even more, I might make a third follow-up video, an ultimate review after I finish the game. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. But a video I am for sure gonna make soon is I want to respond to more of your guys' hot takes and bad opinions when it comes to video games. So if you've made it this far in the video, leave those comments down below. Just tell me a random hot take you have, or again, a random bad opinion, or a random question, or a random topic that you want me to discuss. Again, leave those comments down below and I'll respond to them in an upcoming video. But anyway, what are your thoughts on S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2? Have you played it yet? If you have, are you enjoying it as much as I am? Or are you more critical of this game than me? Either way, I look forward to hearing your thoughts down below. And once again, just thank you for watching, especially if you watched this far.